ke ini Mr. John and Rudy.
No, unfortunately I don't have kalau data yang climate change yang apa seperti historis itu saya enggak punya.
Ini dia langsung sini. Kalau dia ini kan langsung tes. Udah connect
Ya tadi ngomong.
Have you called Maria?
Pak Diswandi?
Yup. Bagaimana, Prof?
Any data about climate change from you?
No, I don't have any for climate change. Unfortunately.
Okay. Any of the other group? So some of the other people. Katok, Takzul, Malashi. Yeah.
Who is Hendrawan? Hendra. Okay. Prof. Tasnim Shah?
Yes, I am here. I'm listening. Thank you. I'm listening, Pak.
Okay. So we just wondered if any of the group had access to remote data, satellite data that could show climate change in NTB.
No, I don't have.
Okay, so it's difficult to talk with the echo. So how are we going to do this? Everybody can hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the goal of this meeting, the goal of inviting Pak Rudy here is what we're trying to do is to access data, remote data. We want to put a team together that can show satellite data which supports the current data which we've got showing climate change. Unram, together with ESL and the province, will be creating a large project with a total budget of around $49 million US, and we're seeking from a number of different climate funds. So in order to access these funds, we have to show as good climate data as possible. At the moment, the climate data that we've got is local, and international bodies quite often don't see just local data as being strong enough evidence of climate change. So we're going to try and link it to international satellite data in what we've got. So what we've seen from locally is that there is a general increase in temperature. It's getting drier in NTB. It's also so there's all the problems to do with that, which are drought, which is drying out of the topsoil. It is, there's a whole range of crop failures, basically because of that. There's an increase in the sea temperature, which damages the fisheries. And then on top of that, we're getting heavy rains, intermittent rains under short periods of time that are uncommon. And this is creating increased runoff and sedimentation. into the seas and into the rivers, so creating storms out at sea, which means there's less days for fishermen to fish. And then it's also creating floods in areas, which is damaging crops. And rain at the wrong time of year can also damage the crops. So all of these things we've got local data for, and now we want to put together a group that creates remote data, satellite data to support all of these things. So we want to gather all the different departments at Unram and create cooperations with foreign universities to first gather this data, then do pilot projects about, the loss of vegetation and how we resolve that in, say, Socorro Forest, how we gather data and model new data to help climate change. And then eventually what we will do is do the large $49 million project where we will do climate adaptation programs in East Lombok and West Sumbawa and in the Alice Straits, where we will build a range of businesses, joint venture businesses with the local community, which are climate resilient. So we're going to redesign certain parts of the forest areas and how we do business, sustainable fisheries, to be able to create new business areas, say medicinal plants, high value plants, sustainable fisheries with cold storage, direct sale to customers. So that's basically the project. But at this particular point in time, we're wanting to strengthen our application by pulling together as much resources from the university as possible to collect this climate data and then to find out which projects with the faculties are already going ahead in the East Lombok and the West Sumbawa area to be able to combine those projects into our project and get them more funding. So it would be good to hear a little bit if there's any of the group who are creating projects in the East Lombok area that it could be related to agroforestry or fisheries or ecotourism or West Sumbawa or the Alice Straits. And then after that, Rudy will explain a little bit about some of the first projects that we're going to try and do to load down data and why we're doing it and how we would apply that. Yeah. Okay. So are there any projects ongoing in West Sumbawa or East Lombok that have to do with forestry, agriculture, fisheries or tourism? Hello?
Ya, pertanyaan dari Pak John, apakah ada proyek kita yang ada di Lombok Timur maupun KSB yang terkait dengan agroforestry ataupun ecotourism ataupun fishery atau perikanan? Kalau ada itu bisa disinkronkan dengan program bapak-bapak ini.
Yes, I have about ecotourism.
Here we go.
Okay, Pak Diswandi, let's speak.
I have research about ecotourism.
About
Ecotourism.
ecotourism. Oh, fantastic. And any projects planned? Any projects planned?
Pak Diswandi?
Yep.
Any project plan?
Project plan? Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a plan for that. I did, and it's still an ongoing process also. It's about ecotourism in small islands.
Fantastic. A lot of our project is around small islands in East Lombok and West Sumbawa. So there will be activities in the project. So it would be very good to look at what you're doing and see if we can cooperate and combine. If we can help put funds into your activities and include them in the project.
For sure. Thanks.
Please, Irma, we must book a meeting with Pakiswandi to be able to look more at these projects. Yeah.
Yeah, Pak Disman is Vice Dean of Economic Faculty.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great.
Vice Dean in Academic Affairs.
Yeah. And from any of the other group? There any ongoing projects or research?
Ada yang lain juga yang punya project selain Pak Diswandi? Kalau Bu Yulvia? Oh, lobster.
Yeah. Okay, so then if there's nothing else, then I think we should basically clip over to, we should turn this over to Pak Rudy.
Okay.
So that then he can show on a screen and basically show some of the programs that we're going to be using. So if we could do it on the Lombok area.
Oke, selanjutnya ada presentasi dari Pak Rudi yang bisa mengakses data-data yang open access internasional, khususnya climate change, yang bisa di-share untuk kita bagaimana mengakses data tentang climate change di seluruh dunia. This is open source, I mean, to show about how to access climate change data.
Should be a red dot at the end there.
Yeah. Yes.
That particular, yeah. We're planting about 10,000 trees.
It's only from 2000.
Bu Irma,
It's only 2,000.
No, from 2000.
nggak ikut ke Zoom ya Pak Rudi? Nggak ikut ke Zoom.
No. That should show definitely. Lots of the whole area. Tons of the forest have been cut down. It's now full. Yeah. So that's great.
Somehow you can
Okay. Okay.
Is Rudy connect with Zoom platform?
So are you connected with this?
Do you have Zoom
Are you up on the Zoom?
application on your
So you can
So you
start
can
sharing
share
your
your
screen.
you have
So we can off this one.
Yeah.
So it's not many. Yeah,
He's got the invitation.
already. Sama undangannya kayak kemarin kan?
sama.
We use the same link ya, like yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Just click the link.
So I just off the airplane mode and I turn it on again. So
And it comes out. Incredible. Thank you. You're a technician.
We were in a temporary glitch, right?
Yes.
This one.
Yes.
jadi bisa di off aja nanti ini. Ini ya,
Ini.
biar nggak
Ini sudah.
ada suaranya. Oh, yang suara. Oke.
Hello. Yeah. Oh, there it is. That one. Okay, so I hope everyone can hear me. This is an example of one of the pre-processed satellite imagery.
Sorry,
Yeah.
she still doesn't share it yet. May Pak Jul help you? Pak Jul, bisa ditolong? Yeah. Now you already open this. Please open the Zoom.
Yeah. Right. I think that's right. Yeah. Okay, I think you've got me now, yes? Has everyone got audio?
Yes.
So,
Okay, so let's go then.
okay, so for the third time. So here is an example of some pre-processed satellite imagery. This particular website, glad.earthengine.app, shows you the forest loss from 2000 to 2020. And in this application, vegetation taller than 5 meters is identified as a forest cover. There is another tool which I'll try and show you in a moment where you can actually select different height classes to do the same thing. So currently there are several pre-processed websites that make the job of reviewing this information a lot easier than downloading the raw satellite imagery and doing the processing yourself. So as I said, this has been pre-processed and you can select different year bands to look at. I think they're in 5-year groups. But as I said, I'll try and show you some other similar websites that give you a little bit more flexibility and range of things to look at. These data sets have been processed globally, so you can go anywhere in the world to look at the impact of these aspects. I'll just try and grab another one. For example, oops. Hang on. This is a different type of data set. This is rainfall derived from satellite information. And it's from the Japanese Space Agency. And there are now several papers that describe ways to improve the satellite data by using local rain gauge data. So once again, the raw input may not actually be precise rainfall that's fallen on the ground, because this is measured as moisture in the atmosphere. But again, in time, these products are continually being improved. And
can we zoom into Lombok?
We can. This is right now today. Oh no, it's not actually. It's today. Latest. There we go. So when was it raining here? Yesterday? A couple of days ago. So you can pick any date and submit, and it will plot whatever the rainfall was based on what the satellite saw. You can also download a time history. So you can download a subset of data. You can identify an area, and then, so let's try one there. The time set. So this will now go through time and collect the rainfall that the satellite saw at our point and plot the rainfall. So this is very useful, particularly if you've got a rain gauge to compare it to. And as I mentioned, there are now quite a number of research papers and algorithms available to help you calibrate the satellite rainfall against rain gauge data. So it's a very, very powerful data set and set of tools. Another one I'll show you. is, of course, you've also got the Indonesian Bureau of Meteorology's site to download various data from. I believe within the project data site, there are around 4 meteorological measuring sites. One at the airport, for example. But if you're not aware of the BMKG site, it's a very good site for data. And this is measured data. Okay, where's the other one? JAXA, FAB.
Do you have one for sea temperature?
I was looking for that one, soil. So another set of satellite processed data is through the Copernicus site. Copernicus is through the European Space Agency, and again the coverage is global. And in this batch of Sentinel data, you can download maps of burnt areas, dry matter production, so that's soil dry matter production, leaf area index, land cover types, vegetation health indexes, soil water index, and surface soil moisture. So all of these are created through a set of frequency bands and indexes. And as I said, rather than having to create the data sets yourself, these are pre-processed and available as completed data sets. So it's for anyone that's done any satellite remote sensing analysis, you'll know that it's quite a time costly exercise. So to have this pre-processed data sets available is very useful in getting some information quite quickly.
It's fantastic, the amount of data on this particular.
As I said, that there are, when you start searching for this information and you realize how many public portals there are with this free information, it's quite astounding to think it's all been, a lot of computer time to process and create these products, and they're just sitting there for the whole globe for anyone to look at.
I mean, the surface soil moisture is a fantastic indicator of climate change and affects, so much. To be able to get that data is absolutely fantastic. Leaf area index as well is a great indicator. So these are super. F cover, that would be forestry cover, is it?
Yeah, I mean, just click on it and find out. Yeah, I mean, the good thing is they give you really good descriptors of what they are and what they can tell you. So this is
fraction of the green vegetation cover. Yeah. Excellent.
And it tells you when you click on these how often it's available, what the resolution is. Yeah, it's very, very informative.
So these are the kinds of things we want to create an Unram team around straight away, to be able to start loading down and collating this data and show how it's changed over a period of time. When we can do this, it means that it becomes easy for us to access climate funds, which are the biggest funds available at the moment, from a variety of different organizations. And what we want, it's all the data that we've got to add to it, the team around to make sure that we gather this information as fast as possible. That is climate become. And then you utilize their work to show really effective, adaptation program includes class whenever it comes to applying for these funds. Rudy.
Yeah, I'll just try. So some of the other types of data that you can access relatively easily. There's a nice document that collates some of the satellite-based remote sensing for measuring Earth's natural capital. This one describes a series of parameters, such as, for example, I'll scroll down through this document and I'll give you an indication of what it's providing. So it tells you which satellite it's coming from, which spectrums are being used to find and where it's available from and whether or not there's a cost involved. So for example, looking at habitat types, it's coming at its global coverage, there's no cost, and it's vegetation that's coming from SPOT and MERIS and ENVISAT satellites.
So Rudy, with these teams, for the data that's processed, what would be the process for Unram? We would put a team together who would just load this on a yearly or monthly basis, whatever we require.
Yeah, you would get onto the data portal, identify the area or extent of data that you want to look at. So for example, Lombok and part of West Sumbawa, and once you've got the area identified, you then through a search portal start downloading the data, and it's pretty much that simple.
So with these sites that are already processed and collated the data, we need an Unram team to start loading it down. We would decide from which year to which year. The client funds say they have special parameters. They want data for the past, say, 30 years, yeah? So that's what we'd start doing, creating maybe a team of PhD students to be able to load down the data together with the technical department, maybe the forestry department as well, load down the data on a yearly basis. And on those years where we know that there's been a change, where there's been a big drought, we can see from the records, we do an extra analysis, maybe do it every month or every 3 months. So we'll decide all of those parameters together once we've decided the team for loading down this data, yeah?
So yeah, this example shows you how much woody biomass is in an area. So woody biomass, of course, is very important for soil health and ongoing vegetation health. And you can see from 1982 to 2011 in this particular area that there's been an increase and decrease in certain areas of woody biomass. This is a national park in Kenya.
So this is the kind of thing we want to show through the project as well. We want to build up the capacity for us to be able to track data. So we show what the effect has been over the last 30 years, and then we show what the effect of our project is over 4 years, and then we keep monitoring it after that. So we want to build up that capacity within Unram and identify the departments in Unram who will take care of this, and then hopefully become one of the centers for this in Indonesia, if we can bring in enough funds to develop this department. It's a very important department in today's new funding, in the way that we look at the world, the majority of the funding that will be coming over the next 5-10 years will be climate related. So for us to build up a climate capacity here becomes incredibly important. And of course, more data and more projects we've got, we can get better university and better private and public partners. And by doing that, we can increase the competence, but also the importance of Unram as an actor in the climate field.
So as John mentioned earlier, leaf area index is a very important parameter to keep track of. And there's a leaf area index download that you can get access to directly. So here once again, I think it's for the site in Kenya. You can see the change from 2001 to 2012 of the leaf area index. Similarly, coastal wetlands and mangrove areas. So all of this amazing data is a bunch of clicks away, really, and you're having to nominate some storage. So if you were to look around my laptop at the moment, I've got, let's see, 6 terabytes of storage just sitting here. And that's pretty typical. When you start working with the satellite data, you do need storage, unfortunately. So once again, depending on the age also, one thing you need to be aware of is the resolution changes. The older satellite data generally is of lower resolution. The newer satellite data is much higher resolution. So I think the latest Landsat 9 is down to 10 square meters. So you can see some of the earlier satellites were 8-kilometer resolution and then 500-meter resolution. So that's come all the way down to 10-meter resolution. And of course, the higher the resolution, the bigger the images. So that's why storage becomes such a critical thing.
And so at Unram, what are the storage capacities that are available for technical department, for the data department? We've got good storage capacity for collecting data. Is this the case?
Storage 600 terabyte.
Yeah, well,
Capacity of Unram.
yeah,
Storage.
yeah.
The memory is about 200.
Yeah. No. Yeah, well, that's a very good start. The other thing that is potentially available as well, especially if you start working with some of the other universities. For example, I have a project on the supercomputer at the Australian National University, and they have huge storage capacity. So if there's a subject matter that is being worked on by a team at ANU and you're working on a similar, then you could share the resources. So that's something that I could probably line up a discussion with. I've got good contacts at the National Computational Infrastructure. So, and they also have very fast processing capability as well.
So that means we'd be able to potentially hook up through Rudy's contacts to a supercomputer in Australia, so we could process data really, really quickly together with Unram.
So for the total of the memory from the storage, they already make the password for every data. But for data satellite, they will provide to put inside the cloud.
Yeah.
Amazon Cloud,
There's a company in Singapore for the cloud.
Yeah.
to recommended first in Singapore, Ocean Cloud, and secondary in Amazon territory.
Yeah.
Is good for storage and processing.
Yeah.
Supply.
Yep. Yeah, and I've
Fantastic.
used Amazon before. It's good.
Yeah.
So some of the other resources for anyone working in this field is things like Stack Exchange. So of course, around the world, there's many other people that are working with these data sets, and there are very good user forums. So, for example, this one is got a forum for using Sentinel data. So the Sentinel satellite data, people who are trying to do something and don't know how to do it, they will ask questions. And of course, someone else who's already done it will answer the question. So they're really good resources for people who are just learning and getting used to how to process and deal with these data sets.
They can learn from this, yeah.
Yeah.
Questions if they don't understand.
Yeah.
So I think that's possibly enough on the, I think everybody understands that, and we'll create some parameters regarding that. Is there a more complicated way of, you said that there is more complicated sites where we would have to actually work on processing the data ourselves?
Yeah. So that's basically the satellite source, data source sites. So if you simply Google satellite data, you'll pretty quickly come up with a bunch of sites. So, for example, the top 3 satellite imagery sources updated for 2021 will give you a list. So typically there is the NASA site, there's the European Space Agency site, and the Japanese Space Agency site. And these are, again, they're all free. You generally need to sign up, so you get a free login, and then you put in a data request, and then you normally get an email to say your request is ready, and you can download the data.
So do they use this site? Is there anybody using these particular image sites at the moment?
Google Earth. Normally we use Google Earth.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing I was meant to. I haven't even mentioned yet. Is there are already a bunch of processing algorithms within Google Earth Engine. So Google Earth Engine is again an online resource that has a Google Earth-like interface, but linked to it is a whole heap of analysis tools, including an algorithm to help you download the data. So you can identify what data set you want, what time you want, time range you want the data set for, and it will do and collect all of this data. And again, there are really good tutorials on things like YouTube. So
is that something they do already? Do they work with special tools attached to Google to extract more data? Yeah, that's what you do. And is anybody working with, which one was this that you had up here?
So that one's called GLAD.
So are they working with the,
Yeah,
we're not working with the other big satellite?
yeah.
Indonesian government often usually data raster from Bako Sana, data satellite or Indonesian satellite, data Sana, image raster from S3, SHP S3, and data Bako, like that. This website.
Yeah, this one's called Earth Explorer. So Earth Explorer is the US Geological Society. So they already have, yeah. So I think, well, over the next very short time, what I might do is create a page with resources, links to resources, because I use them quite a bit, and it'd be quite easy to just have a list of resources.
Okay, that's good. So then, Rudy, I think what would be really good and helpful for the team, if you could talk a little bit about the university cooperations that you could potentially set up in Australia.
Yeah. So I'm a graduate from Wollongong University, and I still have some good connections with Wollongong University, and I'm also working with a group from the Australian National University. Now, the Australian National University has the benefit of being also where the national computational infrastructure, so the university's supercomputer is on that campus. And I've worked with that supercomputer before, and and I know that they are working very heavily with satellite imagery as well. So I think we could have a discussion and probably form a working group, particularly if we can find teams of researchers at ANU working in similar areas. And I'm certain that there are working in similar areas. So a very good friend of mine is working at Geoscience Australia. So Geoscience Australia is a federal government body that is attached to Earth Sciences. So they work for the federal government, but they're very heavily involved in all forms of natural hazard identification and also climate change adaptation. So he is someone that I'm in discussions with quite often. So he'd be a very good source to get in touch with contacts that are working in very closely aligned areas. So I'm quite confident that we could form working relationships with these bodies.
So that's fantastic. I mean, we're looking at doing this with, I mean, we can potentially do it with National Australia University. I can potentially do it with MIT and Oxford universities. And then we can also potentially do it with some leading Swedish universities. We can also probably do it with the Australian Development Agency, the Austrian Development Agency, and some of their universities as well. So that's the groups that we're working with currently to date, but they are some of the leading in the world, and they all have a great capacity. So when we're doing, now at the moment, Unram is writing a whole load of projects for cooperation with universities. We should sit down together as soon as possible and begin to map those possibilities out, because you're putting in funding applications here for Indonesia. There's possibly match funding grants that we could add to that, and we could give you some of the best universities in the world to work with. But it means we very quickly need to see the applications that you're doing and how they match, and then maybe make some suggestions for some projects you might not have thought of yet, because we have the good contacts, and so it makes the really attractive project. Yeah?
Yeah. The other thing I'd say that before you press the download button and start downloading gigabytes and gigabytes of data is like, for example, on the Sentinel site, which is on the screen there now. If you have a quick look at what they have all of the complete archive of all of the Sentinel missions, Landsat 5 to 7 and 8, MODIS, Envisat, MERIS, PROBAR V, GIB. So they have so much data. So you have to be quite careful with what you select before you press the download button. Otherwise, you will fill your hard drives up very quickly and then realize that 90% of what you downloaded is not what you want. So you have to be quite careful. And this is where the forum is very good. So normally when I started playing with this information, I would ask lots of questions. I want to try and do this. What data should I get? And someone will answer the question and say, don't download this. Don't only download this. That's all you need. Because that way, instead of downloading 100 gig, you might only download 1 gig. So,
and we can use this cooperation, this network we create, to give experience, because some of these different groups will have more experience in taking
absolutely.
this information.
Yeah. So there is so much data. It's unbelievable how many terabytes of data is available. And yeah, you don't want to be wasting your bandwidth and your on-site drives for data that you're not going to use. So yeah, please don't be a stranger. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask people questions, because everyone is very, very helpful. I found the open source community is just really, really friendly, helpful, and always ready to answer questions.
Okay.
So yeah, as you can see, the list just, I'm not even halfway through this, and it just keeps going and going. There's so many different catalogs of different data. One's quite specialized, like just Portuguese. So some countries have already collected data just for themselves to make it easier for their researchers.
That's great. So I think next steps, Rudy, is it would we, with a small group here from Unram, decide which programs you start loading down from?
Yeah.
So we create a small team from this?
Yeah, I think I identify some projects, what the project objective is, and then from that project objective, identify what data it needs to satisfy the project. So yeah, if it, as John said, if it's got to do with deforestation, or if it's got to do with land degradation, whatever those project headers are, identify what data sets you need for that, and then just focus on downloading those data sets. And then, yeah, doing the processing and getting some reporting done. There's certainly plenty of data. I guess, again, the thing is not to be overwhelmed by just how much data there is. But
2010 on computer center in Mataram, he was developed with open source application. They got Mapserver.
oh yeah,
Plotting in Mapserver, we plotting data and capture HP digitation to some map.
oh good.
Data business Postgres PL.
Yeah.
And like that, the plotting, I mean, the view of plotting like that, like the UFGS.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, so as I said, that when you
different layer, different vegetation layer, we can.
And you have that data from 2010 to today.
No. 2010, we just get mapping and develop web server to plotting data raster, data designation of data contour.
contour. Yeah.
And the EMZ, SSP from S3, and make different layer to plotting some area in this island.
Yeah.
Did you do Sakara?
No, Indonesian West Lombok.
West Lombok.
Data tsunami, data contour,
Right.
data
Yeah.
mobility of
Yeah.
human and
West Lombok. Yeah.
How
If you
about
want to
the info?
If you want the data in Bapeda, they collect much data from year to year from Tanah, data counter, data vegetation, data raster.
Irma, we have to contact Bapeda about it. Thank you for that information.
You can connect with Bapeda for profession of activity. Data counter from Baku Tanah. Bagus sana itu jadi Indonesia
National Bureau
for data supply.
Yeah.
They call Baku sana. Baku badan.
Is that Dinmas as well? Dinmas?
What is Dinmas?
Dinmas is an Indonesian terrain data.
Oh, different.
Yeah.
This Baku government.
Yeah.
Government and satellite from Indonesian satellite.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So we should set up a meeting with Ibu Weka to access, to find out what data that they've got as well.
Oh, you know where?
Yeah.
I know her.
She's very good.
Matching the and the to let give up for 5 meter, 5 meter.
Yeah.
Zoom.
Yeah.
GeoI.
Because yeah, I imagine if there's a 5 meter data set, that will be much better than the 30 meter data set. So I'd be very happy to have a look at.
It's not easy to get the data from
Yeah,
meteorology and climate.
I know. Yeah. Because I've been working with Udayana trying to get rainfall and river flow data, and I've been trying for 2 years and I still haven't got it. It's very, no. Yeah.
But shouldn't we be able to, with the strength of this project, with the support of the WAGUB, and we have the support already of 6 ministries, shouldn't we be able to go to them and say we want this data? Yeah. So it's these things, it's gathering all our strengths, all our knowledge together to create a strong integrated group that then can access all of these things that we're looking for.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Great.
Yeah, I've heard about this 5 meter data set. I haven't seen it yet.
It's the man who can introduce it. Fantastic. You could maybe use it for your other project.
Yeah.
Great. So we need to now, Irma, compile all this data, all these different groups, actors we've got, compile them into a smaller group, a work group. Yeah. We need to find out all projects that are ongoing. Around Lombard, we find out all the research, medical. So we need all of these, put it into information. Also, routing access. And we need to create a number of different projects for the university, partnering university neighbours. Our goal at the moment. So we will write a small paper and create these groups. Then we start putting on as fast as gather data. And do this, or would you use your own staff to load down this data? How would it work?
We have the graduate for students for science.
Yeah.
So let's start.
Let's start.
Let's start this year. We have no student in this.
Maybe 6 months.
But we need to sort of move on this. We need to gather the climate data now. We can do projects ongoing later.
But master student also available in the Dry Island study.
Yes. There is master degrees in Mataram University.
Okay.
11 or 13 master degree in agriculture and animal husbandry. Science.
So can we utilize them for loading down these data, compiling this data? Is that possible or not possible? Because what we need is a team who's going to sit with this data and compile it.
So the first step might be we have to make the focus research and then ask the lecturer to do the research. That is one way.
Yes.
But also, if we're creating a department for that here, if we're creating a climate change sustainability department, which we're doing, yeah, can't we just, through cooperation with other departments?
Yeah. We also ask the lecturer or researcher to board the student to research together. Every year.
Fantastic. But I mean, I think that's what you need to be able to tell us. Who's going to load down this data and who could start doing it fairly quickly. As soon as we've decided what parameters we're going to look at, what programs we're going to start off with use. Then we need them to be able to access your 600 terabytes of space and start loading down some of this data. And then I think we should work on just 1 or 2 projects, see how it goes, reassess, correct if anything is wrong, till we get a system, and then begin to run out this climate data.
As I mentioned previously, it is important, very important to make the roadmap, research roadmap. So for 5 years, for example, then maybe what kind of research or students or system we need to support the research.
Sure, I mean, that's not difficult at all. What we're going to do is we're going to look at different climate data sets, and then after the project, as the project is underway, we're going to continue measuring them. And we're not then just going to measure climate data, remote data. We're going to build systems together with Rudy. I keep calling you Ricky. So I just had a meeting with Ricky this morning. So it's really, then what we're going to do is we're going to be doing on the ground data. So we're looking at bringing in gyrocopters as part of the project as well. So we could study, you know, really closely in the area, and then have teams down on site as well, so that we can actually measure in detail the changes that we've made. Now, if we can measure in detail the changes that our project makes in real detail, it opens us up for doing more projects. So our project can become a program. So whenever we did this in Sweden before, we really made a detailed analysis of how successful we were, environmentally, socially, economically, all these different parameters. And what projects are looking for, funding groups are looking for, is they want to minimize the risk of failure of the project and maximize the possibility of success. Yeah. So if we have had a successful project but have created really good data showing how it happened and how that change happened, then quite often they say, why don't we do something bigger than a project? Why don't you do a program? And the program is the king of the funding areas. You're not talking 49 million, you're talking hundreds of millions. So that is really our goal, to set up the project so that now we're providing very good data to get the project, but then we document it really, really in detail so that many other people can apply it. If there's very little detail, people don't know how to apply it. But if we've got lots of detail, what we can do is we can create a blueprint for many other places to copy us. It means we become a place that people come to study. And it also means we can move on to doing a big program. Program attracts all of the funding agencies and all of the cooperation partners. All of the top universities and institutions want to be involved in a successful program. So that's really our goal. So yes, absolutely, we can show, but it'll be more or less the same sets of data. Probably after we've done the first sets of data, we will create some more with this group. We'll basically be following it completely through. I can write a small paper and give it to you tomorrow as to the major bullet points that we would be looking at. And then Rudy's done some work already on how would we be assessing remote data and combining it with field data, yeah? Yeah. So we can add that together and give it to you, and that's what we'll be building up here.
Hopefully this year, Unram will start with small funding for the research of aerial part B, project ground
So, I mean, if you're handing in any papers, applying for funding for climate change group or whatever, you're more than welcome to let us have a look at them, because we've had years of experience at working with this, and we know what all the big funds are asking for. So it's very good if your first application for this department contains a lot of the keywords and buzzwords that we can use for the big projects and the programs, because then you have a continuity running through the whole thing. So we're very happy to look at anything that you're applying with. We can help and add to it, and also make sure that it fits all the requirements of the $49 million project that we're doing. So everything connects. Yeah. So we're very happy to spend time helping, just adding bits to it, making a suggestion. Yeah. But we should do that quickly in that case before you hand them in.
So now we only need the proposal, only the proposal. So we can prepare the proposal next time as we want.
Mm-hmm.
So what we need now is proposal to submit, because the time is this week.
When is the deadline? This week?
Yeah, this week, Friday.
For national.
Okay, but then please send your drafts to us straight away. Yeah.
We will send you one.
Yeah, send to Irma. Irma will do a translation for us. Then we will look at them and make some suggestions. And maybe we can make a suggestion maybe for an extra project as well. If we've got lots of really good partners for it, maybe we should be looking at, so we should use always our collective knowledge together to get the best possible result. Would you like to, which was that?
So this one's Global Forest Watch. It identifies it as being protected forest.
This is I'm asking to put what you suggest for the keyword and the buzzword. Maybe you need me to, maybe for the.
But we need this in, I need it in a Word document.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you to translate it.
Yes.
You can just Google translate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can translate on the like the resume and then also the introduction. I mean, not all of it.
Can't you just Google translate it and ask him to read it?
Yeah, yeah.
Just Google translate it, you don't just put it in.
Yeah.
You don't have to sit down and work on it. Just
Yeah.
it's generally right. Our area looks like it's still got.
Yeah,
Forest.
it's protected forest.
Yeah, all right, that's right.
Yeah,
There we are.
But
Not so well.
But this one does analysis as well. So you identify a polygon, and it tells you primary forest 77.1 kilohectares of primary forest, extended over 6.1% of the land area in 2020, lost 3.35 hectares of primary forest, equivalent of 2.2 kilotons of CO2 emissions.
That's what we need.
Yeah, so that's already sitting on a
Yeah.
pre-processed website,
That's it.
and there's a whole heap of
There's a whole heap of
parameters that you
So they
look
can
at.
click in on this area here.
Yeah. You can create a polygon around it with these tools here, and then do or wherever the tools are, and then do the analysis on that polygon.
Do you want to go and see their data department?
Yeah. No, that 5 meter data set, if they've got it, would be awesome. I heard it. I was told about it before, and I got a login, but I couldn't download it, or I couldn't find it. So it's in secret, you know.
There's probably some.
Yeah. Yeah, like deforestation alerts every 6 to 12 days.
Sorry. What here? Yeah. Yeah, just to see, and then we'll have a look at them and see, is there an extra one we could hand in with really good partners that could help the project, for example. That's really good.
Yeah, yeah, so right.
And it will tell you between 2 different years.
Yeah, but not for all of the data sets, but yeah, pretty much. So sometimes it's like this one's got 2000 and 2020, so it's a 20-year.
Yeah.
Someone's processed it for 2 different times.
Yeah.
But some of the other ones are every year.
Yeah.
And some of, like as I said, that other site was in 5-year blocks.
Can you do this area for 2010 to date?
Forest change.
So Irma, is it possible for him to show Rudy your data center here? The guy?
Tricolor loss.
So I think that we can wrap up the meeting, the conversation. I think we know quite well what we've got to do. We just have to know very clearly who is the team within Unram, the smaller team, and then we will work directly with them to
students to assist us. Is it possible to use undergraduate students?
Yeah. I mean, loading this down, undergrad students should be all right to load this down, do you think? Or?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of it making it easy for your team, because a lot of your, your professors and everything, they're very busy guys, Yeah. So just the way that you would organize it, and then we can give them guidance in the beginning, so a little bit intensive in the beginning, and then once they got the habit, just let them start loading it down. They're part of making a new department in Unram. It's a big honor to them. And then can we also book up a time with these guys for medicinal plants? I'm going to try and bring some, I'd like to just have a word with them before I bring over first some of our own specialists for medicinal plants. Great. And I can show you that we've got a list of some medicinal plants that are very high profit. So we can compare them with your notes and how we can maybe work together. And then, of course, we want to expand this. So maybe a meeting next week, and then I will try and gather together our permaculture experts and then bring them over and have a bigger meeting. And then, and then in that case, what we do is together we write the medicinal plant part of the project. We write it together.
And I think you can my project.
Yes, I would love to. I'd love to come and have a look. Yes, that'd be great. Will you a site visit? That'd be fantastic. Yeah. Oh, we have to sit down and discuss the lobster as well. Yeah, we have to. Yeah.
But so what do you think? I'm planning to develop a proposal to LPPM about the people's view about climate change in these kind of conditions.
I think that could be good, but I'm really interested in your lobster project, because the lobster project is going to be a major economic driver of Lombok, but there are a lot of problems with the way they've set it up. So right beside the lobster production, they've got huge agricultural runoff and huge sewage emissions on a prime lobster site. And then how are they going to get the lobster feed?
Actually, this lobster project will be funded by
Yeah.
So the project, I mean, for the socio-economic research, we got 1.7 million for the project.
1.7 billion.
Million rupiah, not billion. Million rupiah.
1.7
For socio-economic research.
1.7 million.
Rupiah.
1.7 million is.
Yes, but only for social research. But for the technical thing, it will be handled by Ministry of.
Okay, but I would like to talk about that, and then we should also talk about, I mean, people's attitude to climate change, but it's also their knowledge about it, because we're going to do an education system.
Yes.
So then we can absolutely, because we can link it into our education program that we'll be doing.
Yeah. So I'm going to develop the proposal about that we asked the funding from Unram, because based on the discussion with Marie last month, we really need that data as well, because especially in these 5 locations of
We're super happy. Write it, send it to us. We will add suggestions that you may want to take or not take.
Okay.
And then we will try and align it to the climate funds, because we're not just looking at GCF now, we're looking at about 3 or 4 different climate funds. So we just make sure that it has connections in the speech, in the goals to all of the different climate funds, so we can use it.
Okay. So can I know what others project? Because I mean, I also want to know what can we cover from the socio-economic research.
But let's sit down and discuss that, you know. So let's, rather than with the big forum here. So let's.
Yeah.
So come with your idea, sit down, and all the other data that you might want and information. We'll just have a quick discussion here in Mataram. I've got to go and do a call with a marine biologist project, a reef protection project that also wants to co-fund with us and come here. So they're from Sweden. So I got to meet with them after this, and then.
We have, from the last meeting, I still keep this. Actually, it's from last 2 weeks with Marie.
Okay.
So I didn't know about Rudy's information yet before. So this is from the MKG. From the MKG, we only get the climatologic data, but we really need to know what actually people know about climate change. So that's why we have rationale about the activities in the areas of Alas Straits.
Mm-hmm.
So the MKG told us that we can't, they can't provide the data of what is that? Of other than climatological data. For example, like when the story of when the wave is very high or something like that. So we try to identify other institutions like the NTD, BPS, or from the village level. And again, we also need to know what actually people feel about climate change, maybe in the past 2 years or something like that. So that's why we need to talk to people as well.
Or if they know that they're being affected by climate change.
Yeah, hopefully they.
Well, I mean, some people may not. I mean, sometimes you don't connect the fact that, you know, that it was dry for a number of years. We've talked to some local communities, and they're just like, there was no rain. But they're not really connecting it back to climate change, and they're not really sure of what the continued danger is.
Yeah.
So they're not aware that all the climate change data says it's just going to get drier and drier. So they didn't know about that. So, you know, so when we're talking down to some of the farmers and different people at Sakara, they're just like, if it rains, it rains. If it doesn't, it doesn't. They don't have pre-knowledge that, well, there's going to be less and less rain.
Yeah, but you have some questions that it's not available in DINAS or in the MKG, John. For example, like they have information about the flooding in along the sea or something like that. So probably these people know the story about that. So that's why.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's a verification of climate change.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I'm super onto that. That's fantastic. Great. Yeah, we'll support you in any way that we can. For that.
Yes.
Great.
He will support us.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So it's great to create as many of these small projects, because when we go with the big projects, if you've got good data and lots of pre-projects, yeah.
That's all data, small money.
Yeah.
Big one.
Exactly. It's the fishing, it's the bait. Okay. Right. Well, thank you very much for today, guys. I think we learned quite a lot, and we were able to line up a lot of useful meetings. I'm very happy to meet you all. I'm very happy to soon be your neighbor in the office just beside.
When is that?
I don't know. When is it going to be ready, Irma? The office.
I just got information from Vita that she will start to meet with Pak Manduki. They are next week because they still sick. So yeah, just got information from Maria.
So hopefully in a week or so, we'll move in as quickly as possible so we can be efficient, so we can meet small groups very regularly and create small workshops and teams. Yeah. Okay. And then so some of the people here as well, I think it was Pakiswandi who had the tourism projects. That would be really good to meet up with, so yeah, all the people that we've identified. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. And Rudy just wondered if he could have a look at your data center while he's here. Is that possible? Okay, fantastic. That'd be interesting, I think.
Yeah. The US Navy's another site too. The US Fleet Navigational Meteorological Oceanographic Center.
They must have up-to-date data.
Yeah, they have sea surface, waves, wind. Yeah, they've got a lot of data. And
Yeah, so that's what we want for the waves.
Yeah,
because it's the wave height, the increase in wave height that's actually stopping them fishing.
Yeah.
So they were saying that they'd lost about 30 odd fishing days a year, which is 10%.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Now the head of computer center, Unram, is created from
From Manchester.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just down the road. I used to live in Derby.
Yeah.
Derby is super close to Manchester. Ah, yeah.
Try to contact the head of computer center.
Okay. Great.
Oh, photo session.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We
Right
have
there.
to take picture together.
Masker.
Like documentation.
With a mask.
Masker.
In a mask, yes.
So where are we taking it? Yeah.
I tell Eka I meet John. Oh yeah, by John, I know well.
With a nice map.
Yeah, with the map beside of STV.
Okay.
Bayar mic ke sini?
Ini Mbak Irma.
Foto bersama dulu.
Iya, dia.
Kena ini Rahat. Map peta itu.
Get the map as well, yes.
Peta itu.
You're right.
Oh,
Bisa nggak kalian?
kena di peta itu mah.
Nah ini baru pas ini 1, 2.
Alas straight
Yeah.
group.
One game.
It's strange that I still smile when I got a mask on. Nobody can see.
Oh, good.
Great.
Very good.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Very professional. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet Buan.
Yeah.
I did PhD in Liverpool.
You,
Yeah, graduate 2013.
Wow.
Civil engineering.
Yeah.
But not in focus on timber engineering.
Timber.
Yeah.
Timber structures.
Timber structure, yes.
Yeah.
Most of my articles in timber structure. Actually, I did experimental drawing in Japan, Kyoto. Glue thing.
Nice.
Oh, we worked a lot with glue lam in Sweden.
Yes,
Very
Sweden,
big,
yes.
very big.
I have friends that graduates from Kyoto and work as lecturer in Uppsala University.
I worked with, we built a glue lam beam house in the middle of Stockholm.
How many stories?
It was on top of quite a big building, so we just built an eco building on top of a big high-rise building. But we just wanted to show it's also easy to get the glue lam beams up onto it because they weigh.
My research is
And I think there's a group of Swedish companies looking would like to do glue lam with bamboo.
Oh yeah, group. Yeah. No, many research now, but no. Yeah, is it possible to apply here? Maybe the instructions, the machine to laminate, but it's from Chinese country. Bring here. Is it possible to?
Which part of the project? We're going to set up a bamboo factory to make fresh bamboo and then bamboo panels.
Laminate bamboo.
Yeah. So we're going to be looking to set up really big platoon bamboo growth. That's part of the project. And also we want to put it close to rivers, the platoon, because the platoon will stop agricultural runoff as well. Because the platoon really sucks up tons of water. So if you put it beside rivers, it's also the area that the platoon likes to grow. So there's a lot of bamboo in NTB, but very little platoon. But if you plant it in the right place, then you can grow tons of platoon and stop the agricultural runoff and stop the sediment going into the sea. So we're looking to do this, and I already have investors for the bamboo factory.
Yeah, now I already make agreement with the UTM to research about platoon, about the embedding strength of platoon. We make collaboration with Mara University.
Are you doing a platoon plantation nursery?
Not the structure, but I will learn about the plantation of platoon.
Because we want to set up platoon nurseries as part of the project.
Yes, I will. Muktasar was yesterday involved in the bamboo lamination.
This one?
Muktasar yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah. But then again, where's Irma? Sudirman, could you please say? So, can we take down, can we get the details of the guy who was working with platoon?
Muktasar. Dr. Muktasar.
So this is potentially just really huge here with all of these different departments.
Yeah.
Just to basically stick them all together. You're from ESL here as well.
Terima kasih.
Yeah, because that's another one of because we want to set off all of these small little projects. And that might be a project that I would suggest here. Because also, platoon has a bigger carbon sequestration ability than other bamboos.
Yes.
So I read a paper that had been done, one in Thailand and one in Indonesia, where they looked at that, and they were saying between 9 to 12 times more than ordinary bamboo. Bamboo has a high carbon sequestration.
Ready to stick.
Yeah, we can leave our stuff here and then come back to it.
Yeah.
We got procurement. If you could stay and make sure that keep that because this is Rudy's. Oh, you've got your. So this is Rudy's live here.
Yes. I will say it.
Mereka awalnya kantor juga di kawasan banyak. Jadi aktivisme ada berapa?
Kalau yang
Fire off a message and see if they've got.
Yeah. If they.
Yeah, can I only ask the question? It says they've got an archive.
Let's organize something for next week and begin to put together. I can show you what our plans are.
Hadir kan? Hadir.
Tapi dia TC kan bagian dari jadi siapa kita boleh
Mungkin apa?
Lebih fokus. Jadi mungkin saya tidak tahu saya tadi kalau kemudian ada satu keluhan spesifik bisa diberikan karena kalau bisa diukur debit airnya, tahunnya, hasilnya. Nah itu kalau saya perlu tahu itu luar biasa. Maksudnya yang tersimpan. Kalau yang di dari tingkat pendapatan masyarakat. Jadi pada titik 0 sebelum KKN kita sudah berproses. Tapi kalau sudah 1 tahun ada perubahan belum ya. Selama ini kita tidak mengukur tingkat pendapatan. Jadi kita tidak lebih di titik mana petanya dan pengendaranya poin paling penting itu dari seorang trainer.
Mari makan. Terakhir.
Informatif banyak yang nggak ada di segi dua ini pastinya. Ini cuma ada di sini mas cari jaraknya. Saya itu justru kan development studies. Saya malah lebih cocok kerja sama teman-teman saya yang orang dasar yang education kayak gitu-gitu loh. Karena Mbak Eka itu sudah punya sesuatu. She already have something in her mind gitu loh. Kalau asumsi gitu nggak bisa digeser. Iya, itu yang saya tuh selalu namanya itu kadang-kadang. Nah itu begitu maksud saya. Iya. Itu langsung kakak aja. Kadang kalau Pak Ibu itu sini saya bantuin itu hanya untuk membuat jawaban harga aja. Tapi lebih ada sama diri saya sebenarnya konsultasi itu sama. Iya, cocok kok. Iya, dari tapi hebatnya ilmu kayak gitu loh. Dia ada buku, dia ada kualitas internasional, pintar mereka itu. Namanya kita nggak matching ya, nggak matching aja ya. Nanti dia nyambung, nggak bisa semua dia satu. Saya di sana pakai mbak itu apa namanya mbak itu kalau saya dong nggak gitu. Katanya nama itu salah this is my dream not one katanya. Iya ya. Ya kan itu saya dari kita bukan orang masuk. Oh ini itu viral banget. Viralnya itu karena dia this is my dream tapi baru kan. Tapi baru hati bahasa Inggris yang bilang, Mbak kurang S-nya kan. Pakai apa dosen-dosen ini? Kurang S. Katanya gua juga ada di highlight takut jadi kita ngomong bahasa Inggris. Nanti bilang aja sama nggak usah dah di konsultasikan itu nanti kalau di Daya kita konsultasikan ini kan kita yang penting keluar dananya kita kalau melakukan interview aja dia berapa orang itu
yang muda ada simplisial buat aja simplisial tapi asal di sini
iya nanti dah apa namanya jenis data yang detailnya kita perlu sekarang yang penting kita mau
ini kebetulan seperti
ya kalau saya sih untuk argumentasi
ini kan soal
nanti ini
kalau misalnya ke situ itu orang datang nggak
project sama
setelah di dalam
orang itu jadi
oke
itu ya
ayo Pak
di luar BCF apa ini saking sibuknya aduh ditanya sendiri ya boleh Pak itu dong oh iya karena kan masak hari apa ya kita ngedek sama Pak mau berbaik dari mana kamu sama ya sama kamu nih harus nih ini itu ada itu yang duluan ya Pak Ali minta saya harus supaya ada padahal untuk sudah berubah Enggak di sini. Kalau rumah masih kalau saya sih makan saya salah bukan apa-apa kita kan nggak tahu konstelasi politiknya dalam ini nanti tidak berbagi lalu jadi kick out kan Pak Anies mau pensiun siapa yang mau ada
Kalau begitu, kalau kembali ke yang mbak yang menghadapi itu bisa representasi oh nggak sih pak menurut saya sih itu dari lama tapi itu nggak keluar mungkin kalau saran saya sih nanti ya headline yang kayak Iya, karena saya kan jadi saya jadi kalau dibilang apa-apa saya sampai oke, yang PPM ya. Oh, oke. Ya Mbak, itu sih saran saya. Dan banyak lagi hal-hal lain. Masuk ke ini kalau misalnya ini kan masih kayak orang lagi ya, saya sih bilang sama suksesnya. Kalau punya mana saya syukuri, tapi tolong didampingi beliau supaya masih muda. Dia mau jadi mungkin kaget kan karena posisi sudah tetap posisi kayak gini. Saya tahu ceritanya. Sekarang di luar masih orang nunggu. Anak-anak yang FO itu kan saya tuh kayak gini kan. Makanya saya baru sama orang dari manis. Belum bisa diurusan lagi dari mau. Jadi kan aja kan buat itu pas saya punya uang enggak deh lagi saya. Karena aku lagi tidak tahu berita aja kayaknya. Maksudnya udah selesai proyeknya mau beli saya. Kenapa saya dipanggilnya Bapak? Gimana? Dia dari dulu udah dipanggil Bapak, sekarang malah marah dipanggil Bapak, udah lebih tua juga. Si omong itu yang ekek sama mereka. Udah tahu. Yuk kayak. Diceritain gak? Itu kan ngomongnya ekek-ekek sama gitu. Kayak ngomongin gitu mau saya, bukan dorong. Ya ada bayar ya. Hati-hati. Salam.
Lagi pada posting soalnya nih. Ini banyak sekali senjata. Ungkap-ungkapnya. Oke. Sama saya juga agak ingat. Mungkin saya lepas ini terus sebelum saya lupa nanti lupa. Oh ya. Udah jalannya tidak enak ya? Ya. Jalannya ini punyanya Pak di bawah aja. Oh iya, jangan saya. Beliau kayaknya enggak balik ya. Oh iya. Makasih Mbak Irma. Oke, betul. Pakai dia goreng lah. Dia yang goreng.
Thank you, that was awesome. Thank you.
Makasih Pak Jon.
Thank you. All right, shut these things down. Yeah, so and yeah, then the flood, you know, the main focus. So even that Re-Vegetation Project was that's I stumbled upon that because no one else would pick it up. You know, they've got this wetland that they know has been in demise for about 30 years, and they've had 20 or 30 reports done on it. I don't know how many millions they've spent on having it reported on, and the last thing they had was a proposal to build infrastructure to basically build storages for $40 million to try and resolve the problem. And I reviewed this report and said, guys, this is not going to solve the problem. This is, you know, it's ill-founded. You know, you're going to put storages on the edge of a wetland where the water already gets stored. You know, what's for $40 million? You're not, there's no bangs for bucks here at all. I wouldn't do it. So they agreed not to do it. And then they go, well, what are we going to do instead? You know, because they've already been collecting. So the basic problem is that they earmarked this huge area for development, urban development. The urban development's been ongoing and still ongoing. As urban development has increased, this massive wetland downstream has been dying. And I got in a previous role when I wasn't working for the council, I was working as a consultant, and one of the biggest landowners employed me to run a court case against the council that I won. So I was really shocked that they gave me the job.
Yeah, well, it's probably let's get him on our side.
Yeah. Anyway, so we got some satellite imagery analysis done, which mapped the dying of the wetland and the increasing in urban infrastructure, and there was an absolute direct correlation between dead wetland, bigger urban development, which they then, after that, employed ecologists and all these other people to go in and look at it at a more macro scale and basically came up with a very, very compelling argument. Yeah, that this is so. It's well known. It's called urban stream syndrome. So when you urbanise an area, rather than all the water infiltrating and being slow, you get a quicker pulse of water, more frequently. So the wetland was actually drowning, right? So because it was never allowed to dry out, and some of the species require drying out every 7 to 10 years, otherwise they drown. And that's what was happening. There's these huge areas of dieback occurring in the wetland that you go, oh, I'm not sure what's causing it. You know, urban development is an absolute classic. So this, I did another project in Wollongong, which involved a park where we planted. There's now over 100,000 trees planted in this one park, and we don't have, again, we don't have monitored, measured data, but we've got lots and lots of anecdotal evidence and semi-measured data about increased infiltration, reduced speed of water, like all of the positive things that this thing needs. And globally, there's been this huge move in nature-based solutions, and you know, the EU through the Water Framework Directive has come up with this natural water.
Sadima's waiting for us.
Yeah.
So we load stuff.
Yeah.
That's super interesting, Matt. So yeah, so but you're prepared to tell them to just stuff it.
Well,